Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to On the Air with Paranormal Stakeout. I'm your co-host, Larry Lawson, in Vero Beach, Florida, and I'm the president or the owner of Indian River Hauntings, as well as the director of the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation. And my other co-host is my dear friend Chris Huff up in Durham, England, County Durham, England. Correct,
In
Chris?
County Durham, yes, indeed.
County, so wave high. And of course, as usual, my son Ryan is in his little studio in Orlando, and he's engineering all this. And folks, you are watching this live from England as well as Vero Beach, Florida. And we're really glad you've joined us all here tonight as we talk about just about anything paranormal. So we got a lot to go over tonight. I've got some admin stuff I want to talk about first. And to start it off with, I want to talk about why we do this. We do this to spread the word, to talk about what this phenomenon is and how to look at it realistically, how to look at it honestly, and how to maybe eventually find all of the answers. Now, as we go tonight, we'd really like all of you that are listening, if you have questions, thoughts, or comments, opinions, go ahead and type them in. Ryan in Orlando is going to see your comments, and he's going to give them to us on the air, and we will answer them or comment on them as best we can. Uh, I also want to ask you to subscribe and like to the channel so that you can continue to enjoy our new content and hear what we're doing. One of the things we also want to do on the show here is announce what other teams are doing. We believe in unity. We believe in everybody working together. And this is, as some of us say, the season for our type of work. And I'd like to take some time to, during the next few weeks, announce what everybody's doing. If you've got an event going on for Halloween, if you've got an investigation you'd like folks to know about, get it to me at ghostguy59 at gmail.com. That's ghostguy59 at gmail.com, all lowercase. And let me know what you want me to bring up on the show here so folks can hear what you're doing. And I do want to make a couple notes right now. My dear friend Scotty Burns, who runs War Party Paranormal in West Palm Beach, Florida. They've got some really cool things going on down there. October 17th, they've got Ghost Hunt at the Kelsey Theater in Lake Park, Florida. The pre-sale before that night, it's $35 a ticket, $40 at the door. And you can, I'm going to try and get this out to you. Well, I would go to War Party Paranormal's website, and Scott, if you're out there and you can give us a better email address so I don't screw it up, that would be terrific. And on October 25th, War Party is also doing Friday Fright Night at the library at the South Regional Broward College Library, 7300 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines, Florida. They ask that only 21 and over be there, but that's another event that War Party is doing. And of course, they're always involved at the Riddle House in West Palm Beach in Yesteryear Village. They're always doing events there. Indian River Hauntings, our little gig here. We've got a whole bunch of things happening this October. We've got tours in Vero Beach and Fellsmere and Sebastian. If you go to our website at www.indianriverhauntings.com, you can go to tickets and information. It gives our entire lineup. A couple things I want to mention on that is on the 19th, we're at the famous Waldo Sexton in Tripson Estate doing a dinner and a ghost hunt. And of course, we'll be back in Fellsmere on the 26th, just before Halloween, doing dinner and a ghost hunt. You can get all that information on our website. And I want to toss something else out to you too. And Chris and I are involved in this one. Stay tuned. We're coming to England. We're taking Indian River Hauntings to England and giving you an opportunity to go to England and investigate the history and the haunts in England. So keep your ears peeled for that one. That's coming up probably summer of 2021. And also watch us go to see my buddy Ike Inzi of IDK Paranormal. We're going to be taking a trip to New Mexico to see some of the Southwestern American haunts, probably in the not too distant future. So those are some of the cool things we've got planned out there. Want to say hi to our buddy Damien Freddy in York, one of the best ghost storytellers in England, in York. As always, Ike Enzi, IDK Paranormal, does some really great YouTube stuff. Go to IDK Paranormal on YouTube. He's done about 8 episodes so far. he's a police officer like I am, and he's got some really interesting paranormal stories from the world of law enforcement. And of course, I got to mention his sister, the beautiful Sylvia Whitcomb. Her birthday is today, so happy birthday to Sylvia. Hopefully, she's listening to tonight. Just a couple other things here. Doodlebug Dowsing, who does all of our dowsing rods. Doodlebug Dowsing, Sherry Cox, Nikki Shreves at email doodlebugdowsing, all one word, at gmail.com. You can also get that on our website, and our friends at Marsh Landing, and of course the Driftwood Inn in Vero Beach, also good friends and supporters. And now that I've talked your ears off, Chris, you got anything you want to add?
Nothing at all. I think you've said everything.
Everything. So keep tuned. We got lots of things happening, folks. So stay tuned. And remember, when we do these things, we try to do it to give you the real view of what paranormal research and investigation is. We want to share that with you. So with that, Ryan, you got any comments, brother?
I do not.
You do not.
Is anybody on, Ryan?
Yes. We have
Who's on?
We have about 6 people going. We have naturally the Dan Squatch, as he likes to call himself.
The Dan Squatch, yes.
We have
lead investigator for Ep.9. Yep.
Jonah Brinkley, Michael Maxwell. We have the Mr. Judge Dredd.
That's Paul. That's Paul up in Scotland. Hi, Paul.
I just like calling him Judge Dredd.
That is cool. And who else, Rye?
And that's about it.
That's about it at the moment.
Of who's in the chat with me.
Okay, well, excellent. Thanks, guys, for listening. It's good to hear all of you. Dan Squatch, I like that. Dan Clarkson, our lead investigator with FBPI, does a heck of a job. And Michael Spanky Maxwell, he's my lead tech guy and experimented. Who my top guys are on the air tonight. So I'm glad. So anyway, where are we heading tonight, Christopher? As we're
heading to Vero Beach tonight.
We are.
Because I'm fed up talking on this end with you giving me the bad cop, bastard cop. So I'm turning the tables.
Your turn.
And
okay.
I'm going to eat the donuts, and you're going to answer the questions.
That is so anti-cop. My goodness.
Absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
I forgot too. The beer challenge. Ike, this is for you, man. I really appreciate it, Ike, the fact that you were not drinking and driving during the last one. This is a seasonal beer. This is Gourd's Gone Wild. It's brewed by the Tampa Bay Brewing Company. It's a pumpkin ale, about 6% alcohol by volume. It's kind of tasty. So it's one of our Florida beers, Gourd's Gone Wild. So I just wanted to mention that for our beer of the night. So top that one, Mr. Enzi. And Chris, you need to get in the game too and show us some of those British beers.
Well, if I can actually get out at some stage, I'll get some.
Okay.
But as I said, I haven't been out of the house in a good 2 weeks.
Too bad, because I mean, England's so beautiful. I don't think I could ever stay inside when I'm up there. So where are we heading, old friend? Where are we going?
We're going right back to the beginning.
Okay.
How did you start the groups?
Wow. This is a story I like to tell, during a lot of our events. I first saw my very first, like a lot of people have seen apparitions when they were kids. I didn't. Had an interest. I grew up in an era where, what is it? Chariots of the Gods was written. I don't know if you remember all that stuff.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. Hans Holzer's stuff was probably the most common paranormal type stuff being written. The Warrens were just coming into play, and we were hearing more about them. But I really didn't experience anything. Had a fascination. Didn't see my first full body apparition until I really had just begun my law enforcement career. I was working in the Dade County Jail in Miami, and it was midnight watch, and I was sent up to the 4th floor where we kept folks that were having either mental issues or they were on suicide watch. And down one of the corridors, one of the cell blocks, I saw a figure walking, and I thought it was our lieutenant sneaking up to the catwalk, but it wasn't. That the person was gone. That's really what the first thing that I experienced. But it was absolutely vivid. And of course, once it happened, the other guys that were working with me that night said, "Oh yeah, the jail's haunted." And since that time, I've seen a lot of prison and jail investigations. and I think it's because of the just the energy and the bad energy and the
Mhm.
emotions that are tied up in a penal institution. I think that's why they're so blasted haunted. And anybody that's watched any of the shows or looked at any of the research, I found penal institutions can be very haunted. But that was my first experience.
Can I ask you a question about it?
No.
When you saw it,
Mhm.
did it take any notice of you?
No, absolutely not. It was. I have to kind of explain this. I was sitting at the control booth, something like where I'm here now, and the glass was in front of me, and it went to the back to a back door, and that back door opened to the catwalk, which
Yeah.
was all locked up on the outside, and it went around the outside. There were three wings, and for some reason it was A, C, and B. Don't ask me why. C was right in front of me, and I'm looking down C wing, and I saw that person walk on the catwalk from right to left, and all he did was like 3, 4 steps, boom, 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 right across. Um, so no, they didn't take notice of me, and obviously I thought it was somebody who came up the back stairs.
Yeah, I dare say you didn't get a chance to talk to the other chaps who work there to ask, does it always do this?
Well, here's what happened. I'll tell you what happened. I said, "Hey guys, lieutenant's on the catwalk," and they shot up and went out the back door. One went right, one went left, because obviously it went right around. Right? They both came back and said, "Lawson, you're crazy. There's nobody out there." I said, "No, I saw him. He was right there, and it was very, very. It wasn't hazy. It wasn't foggy. It was a solid person." And the guys looked at me and said, "Oh, well, I'm not surprised. We're not surprised this place is haunted anyway." And they proceeded to tell me different things that had happened on that specific floor um, over the years, because it was the mental floor, the
Right.
mental health floor. So no, that's what happened there.
So that's ghosty number one.
That goes, and of course, young guy. I'm entering my law enforcement career. I'm barely 20 years old at that point. So I'm still excited about being on the job. Then of course I get on the road, work the road, and I have a bunch of little things that happen. Nothing really um, earth shattering. You see something out of the corner of your eye. There's an alarm that goes off in a building for motion, but
Yeah.
there's no motion inside. Things like that. Um, so it was just kind of an interest for a long time. Well, then of course the shows came out, and I watched them. I fully admit, and I know that probably just drives you batty hearing that, but I did. And Ryan was watching with me. In fact, that was our thing. Wednesday night, Ghost Hunters. He would sit down, we would watch it. And for his 11th birthday, and if I get any of this wrong, Ryan, jump in. For his 11th birthday, and by this time it was 10, 11 years ago now, he wanted to go to St. Augustine because of some of the things that had happened there, and we'd heard what a haunted place it was. So we're about 3 hours south of St. Augustine. Up there we went, and we went on a tour at the old St. Augustine Lighthouse. Now, folks, if you've not been to St. Augustine, if you're in Florida and you haven't been to St. Augustine and the paranormal is your thing, you must go. Granted, it's a very commercial city, a lot of tourism, but there's a lot of cool stuff there too. And we went to the lighthouse. We took the first tour, and it was pretty interesting. We had fun, and we said, "Nuts! We'll take the second tour." They had one going right after that. Second tour was a little bit smaller, and the guy that was running it said, "Oh, you guys have been through this once. Tell you what, this group is smaller. I'll take him to the lightkeeper's house. You can have the lighthouse for about an hour all by yourselves." Awesome. So Ryan and I went in there, and I don't remember what floor we were on, fourth, fifth floor. I can't remember exactly. But there is a long story about three little girls that died during the construction. They were the daughters of the construction foreman and I think a friend. And they used to play on this track. There was like a trestle that went from the beach down to the water side where they brought in all of the stuff to build the place. And the kids would play on it. And they would ride it down, hit the brakes, and stop. Well, apparently at one point the brakes didn't hold, and the carriage went into the water, and the children drowned. And there had been reports of the kids being seen and everything. And sure enough, while we're in the lighthouse, we hear the kids laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, first thing I did, being a cop, I'm looking for microphones and speakers or something. Not there.
Especially as it's so commercial, you expect, well, they're going to lay it on for the tourists.
Yeah, well, this I'll tell you, we've been back there 3 times, and we've had some very significant events there that thoroughly checked were not staged at all. In fact, one of them was we got locked in there one time, and I didn't realize until later other people have had that same thing happen. And when we got locked in, it couldn't have happened. There's no way the door should have locked. Do you remember
Yeah.
that, Ryan?
Yes.
Were you up there with us for that one, Ryan? Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, if I got our little girls laughing story pretty well correct as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. So anyway, that's what got us started. We decided we're gonna start looking into this and find out what this phenomenon is. Now, understand something. Being a cop, I gotta have evidence, and you and I have gone back and forth about evidence and what it means to me and what it means to you, and um, but I got to have evidence, and that's the one thing I have strived for in the vision of our team that we put together, which is the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, named by who, Ryan? Who named it?
I did.
You did. That's right. So Ryan came up with that term, and that's what we started calling ourselves, and that's what our vision has been. We just we're trying to find the answers through scientific methods, gaining evidence and whatnot, and it's been a challenge, and that's how we kind of got started. Long story short.
So I'm going to take you on to the next logical step.
Okay.
How did you meet all the other chaps in the team, or chapesses in the team?
Chaps. Well, first of all, it started off with just Ryan and I for a little bit, but then we had some friends of ours that we knew and had expressed an interest. We had been talking about it for quite a while. One was a teacher, one of Ryan's teachers. In fact, she taught both Evan and Ryan. Then another friend of ours who were neighbors of ours, and that was the first group that really got started. And then Dan came in. Dan was uh, the boyfriend of the lady Jen that was with us originally. That's how he came in, and essentially it was some of the people were just, hey, I know somebody that's interested. We would interview them and talk with them, and they would join with them. Many of those people have gone on to do other things. But a number of my folks in recent times have been the result of the events that we put on. Spanky, who I think is Spanky still listening there, Ryan?
I would.
Spanky still
I
with
have
us?
no idea, but I'm gonna say yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, Spanky, if you're out there, Spanky was a good friend of mine. For many years, I was the director of the police academy in this region. And Spanky, as we call him, was in the same facility, but he is a firefighter, retired firefighter, and he worked in the fire academy. So we had known each other for a number of years. Well, he and his wife just came to one of my events one night, and he was very, very skeptical. He wasn't sure if all this was real. And once he joined us, saw what we did, had some things happen during the event that really got his interest up. And next thing you know, he wanted to spend more time with us. And now he's a valuable member of the team. And being a firefighter, let me tell you about firefighters. Fighting fire is almost like a sideline. They are so good at so many other things. And Spanky's just a very intuitive, what's the other word I'm looking for? He's great at building things. He's great at putting things together. So he's been a really valuable part of the team. So a number of our recent folks have been the result of our events and seeing what we do and them wanting to, they believed in our vision. Does that make sense?
Keep going. Yep.
Okay. So that's where we're at now. Now, how did we start doing the tours and stuff? That was kind of interesting. As I said, I was the director at the police academy, retired from that. We'd already been investigating for a while. Went back to full-time police work. I was the detective in little old Fellsmere. You hear me speak about Fellsmere regularly. And folks started hearing about what I did. And then they started saying, well, you got to talk to this person and that person. And one of the first people I talked to in our department, the chief secretary came to me and said, you got to talk to this lady. Her name's Letty. She's the cleaning lady at the old school, which is now serves as City Hall, built in 1916. A lot of history to it.
Now, this is the school that you go to that has got the little boy that haunts
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry about asking these stupid, banal questions, but I've got no idea.
No, you don't know, and frankly, folks that are listening may not know either. So it's good. Ask all the questions you want, because I'll get talking about it, and I'll just keep going, and it may not make sense. So please ask the questions.
So when was this building built?
It was built. It opened in October of 16, and it closed in 1980. In 1980, and oddly enough, the same gentleman that opened the doors the first time Mr. Borowski is the same one that locked him in 1980, not long before he passed away.
Right.
So it's kind of an interesting story there. And it's the oldest brick schoolhouse in what is now Indian River County. So it's one of the few places in our part of the state that has a basement.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't have basements in Florida because the water table's too high. But this place
This is
does have a
true.
basement. This place does have a basement, and the basement's one of the most active spots in the building.
I find that interesting because I've always found the same myself for
Really?
some strange reason. Yeah. If you get a pub over here and they say it's haunted, go and have a look in the cellar. That's often where it happens.
Could it be the earth or maybe the minerals in the earth?
Once again, I can't give you an answer to it. It's just an observation that this seems to be where things happen. If you've got a haunted pub, go and have a look in the cellar. The number of times people have told me about their pub is haunted and somebody's interfering with the beer barrels, somebody's interfering with the pump mechanisms, things are getting moved around, or there's knocks and God knows what's, and lights turned off when they go down there and all sorts of things.
Now that I'm going to kind of get off subject a little bit here. That is an excellent thought for experimentation. If there is a pattern of more paranormal activity where you have a basement or something maybe below ground level, is there a reason for it? And that'd be a great experiment to do. Different spots around the world that have basements. Is there more paranormal activity there?
I've always sort of had I mean, I can't say it's a definite hypothesis or anything, but a nagging thought at the back of my mind that the basement is probably the quietest place in the whole building.
Okay.
So that any spirit who wants to be left alone, that's a good place to go. They're not going to be disturbed.
Okay,
So
that's that
from
one.
the viewers. Do you think the cellar is more haunted because it's the less visited area?
That's what I just said.
Yeah, that's kind of what he just said. Now, but are you saying, Chris, they're more likely to? You're saying they want to be down there because they want to be left alone. So are they going to be less likely?
I'm not sure if it's they want to be left alone, but because it's a quieter area and it's not disturbed. Pubs by and large, like your bars over there, they get noisy and roisterous, and I think quite a lot of previous owners or spirits passing through or previous customers just don't want to have all the hassle of people being trying to avoid the word here, but nuisances, and creating all sorts of hassles, even giving off negative vibrations. I don't know if that comes into it.
Well, basically, people ask me questions all the time. Why does everybody ghost hunt at night? Is it because that's the only time the spirits come out? Obviously, no. They're around us 24/7. So why do investigators do this at night, other than maybe the ambiance?
Can I
think
just say
that fits into what you're saying, though. Much quieter, less activity. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll just say I don't investigate at night.
Don't you? That's interesting.
No, I rarely, unless I'm invited somewhere and that's arranged, I will not investigate at night. Even the experiment we conducted at one of the local pubs here, where they had phenomena going on in the cellar again, I conducted an experiment with the dog, where all sorts of things have been happening, and the dog would not go down the cellar no matter what.
Interesting.
Which is a reason I'd like to start using dogs if they're not too flighty and not going to get too scared about things as paranormal indicators.
I think that's an excellent idea because dogs, like children, they tend to be more receptive to things. But you're talking about daylight. We were in a prison just south of here, an abandoned prison or a defunct prison, and we clearly got. Evan made a comment, and we had a recorder going. It's a shame they were locked up here in the life, and they're still here in the afterlife. I think you may have heard this one, and very clearly we got a male voice saying, "Hell, we ain't dead." That was 3:15.
Yep.
That was 3:15 in the afternoon.
Yep.
And we're doing another investigation. I really can't say where yet, but it's going to be the first week in November. We're doing it at 7 o'clock in the morning. Why? Because
Excellent.
most of their activity has been during the day, and
Mhm.
because it's an establishment that's open late at night, the morning made sense, and that's when the people are experiencing things. So I see exactly what you're saying.
I don't see any difference between investigating in the day and in the night. The only reason I know of for a nighttime investigation is if that's the only time people can get there, or
Yeah.
if that's the only time that the place is open for them to investigate.
Hmm.
Otherwise, we're getting back to spooky time again.
Yeah. What is your reason for daylight? Give that to me again.
So
Doing
you
it in
can
the
see
daytime.
what's going on.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
You know,
And
we're visually acute organisms. All right, I'm more audio than visual, but too many times I've actually been on investigations. I mean, way back when I did do nighttime investigations, and people are claiming all sorts of things. You know, oh, I hear scratching, something's just been thrown. And if you actually got any sort of infrared device, there's rodents, there's
mm,
insects.
mhm,
Somebody's saying they've just been touched on the face, it's spider silk,
yeah.
you know. And you can't see it, but if you're in the daylight, you can see exactly what's going on. All the apparitions I've seen have been in the daylight.
Interesting. Interesting. Anybody out there that's listening, we'd sure like to see your point of view. Do you investigate during the day? Do you prefer at night? What are your reasonings? If you're out there, well, give us some feedback. Let us know what you think.
I mean,
So,
then again, I have to admit that my experience in Epping Forest, which if you've seen the video, you'll know about, happened at
mhm.
night, and I've been rather anti doing things at night ever since.
Well, that was also not quite what we would call that a ghost, if I'm not
It
mistaken.
was
Correct?
not a ghost, but we're not going to talk about that yet because we're going to do
That's
a
going to
show
come.
on it.
Yeah, we're going to do a whole show on that. That's exactly right. And you
But
folks, and
if
Dan,
you
you'll like this one particular.
if you remember the video and the experience, you'll sort of appreciate why I've a little bit leery about nighttime things.
So just give you a hint. Spirit Research Northeast. Go to it. Type in Epping Forest. You'll hear it. So just
You'll
a
yeah
little.
type in Epping Forest and
Yeah.
you know do like 90% of other people do and just leave a really shitty comment.
Oh, most people are very positive. Come on.
No,
Anyway,
most people put shitty comments.
ah, interesting
Anyway,
video though.
anyway, anyway, off of my problems. So you've got your team going.
Yep.
You've got various locations that you looked at. You looked at the Fellsmere School.
Yes.
Where else
Creepy.
have you been?
Well, in Fellsmere, of course, we'd been to a number of spots in the local area. We were the first team to investigate a place called the Boston House in Fort Pierce, and that's got an interesting history to it. I used to work when I was an investigator for the prosecutor's office in the 19th Circuit, which is our area. They're based out of Fort Pierce, and we had a building that was right near where our office was, and I was aware of it. And we first investigated, I want to say 2011, 2012. And it was built by the second sheriff of St. Lucie County in about 19, I want to say 1911, 1912, something like that. I might have my dates a little bit wrong on that one. But he was the sheriff. He had tragedy there. His son got a hold of his service weapon and accidentally shot a little buddy of his. They were both like 10, 11 years old, and the young boy died. Uh, so there's some real history to that building. And the owners was a friend of mine at the time. He was an attorney. He owned the building and said that gave us all kinds of interesting stories. Everything from a full body apparition seen on the third floor by a copy repairman who came running downstairs and wouldn't come back, to things levitating, artificial trees inside bending over as if they're being blown by the wind, computers suddenly coming on, and things being typed on the screen, all kinds of crazy things. So Ken had us come in, and we did probably 4 or 5 investigations of the place. And admittedly, this was early in our career as a team. And, knowing what I know now, would love to go back and reinvestigate. But some really creepy things in there. Probably uh, one of the funniest things, you'll like this. we're upstairs on the third floor, and walked up with Jen, one of our team members, and I saw there was a door standing open, right? And I got a recorder going, and I'm talking, and I said this door was closed. I'm holding the door with my fingers like this.
Mhm.
This door was closed. I can't believe it's open. And the dang thing pulled out of my hand and shut.
Mhm.
And I said an expletive on the recorder, and because it kind of shocked me, but that was kind of a funny event. People also like to talk about how entities can change a personality.
Mhm.
And
Very much
Ryan,
so.
well, this happened with Ryan. We were on the third floor where a lady had often been seen looking out the cupola at that window at the top. Did you say something, Ryan? Oh,
Nope.
okay. Sorry, I thought I heard you.
Hearing
Um,
things.
I'm hearing things. Yes. So anyway, we're sitting there now. You've met Ryan, Chris, and some of the folks out there listening have met him too. He's very serious, one word kind of guy. He doesn't say a whole lot. And we're sitting up there, and he was 12 at the time, maybe 13. And suddenly he gets very relaxed, and he makes the comment about, Dad, I really, really love this place. I don't ever want to leave. I want to stay here forever. Something along those lines, which was so out of character for him. I had to snatch his butt up and get him outside,
Mhm.
where he kind of snapped back to normal. Do you remember that, Ryan?
Yeah.
Do you,
Yeah.
you see
You got
now?
one
Come on,
word.
fill us in on some of the details, Ryan. Can you remember anything about it?
Not really, to be honest with you. I mean,
Not
Why
really.
I
can't
was out
why
of it.
can't you remember? You were out of it. Okay, that's what
I was out of
okay.
it. Like I don't know. It's just I was out of it. I don't remember much about it. All I remember is that I was in that state for a few minutes, and then you just pulled my booty out of there. That's all I remember. It was so long ago too.
Did it pass quickly?
Oh
The
yeah,
feeling, did it pass?
once my dad got me out of there, it was I did not want to be up there. Once like he like moved me and started getting me
Yeah.
out of the room, the whole place just felt very sinister to me, and I just wanted to leave so badly.
Did you feel any warmth or cold or chills inside?
Not that I
You can't
remember.
remember.
No.
Yeah, it's all right. Don't worry about it. It's I'm just so fascinated in as to the way that spirits affect the living. It's one of my little interests.
Well, that I've only really had two really strong events where emotion or feelings took over, and that was the first one. And let me, like I said, if you know Ryan, you know that how I described he acted is just totally foreign to his nature. The second one occurred in the old school in Fellsmere, and this is a couple of years ago. Evan, there was a gentleman who I can't name because he asked me not to, but he had appeared on a number of the shows back in the day, and he came there with another guest. Wanted to take this person up there to do some research. So Evan and I did, and we were up in the auditorium in the old school. And I like to joke that I'm as sensitive as a rock. You've heard me saying that.
I've heard this.
I
I
don't,
don't believe it.
well, I don't feel things normally. It's got to be kind of solid. Well, we're up there talking, and we were using the DR60, the recorder that a lot of paranormal investigators like to use. I'll be honest with you, I don't like it because it's so old. You cannot transfer what you record onto a computer simply. So, but that's a different discussion. But we were using the recorder, and we were clearly getting some very sinister answers, and it was a male. The person that was with us had a guess, and it was a female, and kept making some really derogatory comments towards the female. And finally, we get to a point where I'm standing in front of the stage in the auditorium, and we're asking some questions, and suddenly my whole world started to spin. And literally, Evan caught me as I was going down.
Yeah.
I've never had this happen, ever had this happen. And we then got the recorder and said, did you do this to Larry? And the answer really clearly came back, yeah, and you're next, bitch. Excuse my French.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
And once
that's
again, and we've not had that problem sense in there, but it was during that investigation. Now, was this an attachment she brought in? Was it just something that we don't know? But we've not had that happen there. But that was a pretty significant event for me personally because I've never had that happen before. So,
well, can I take you to the experience? Can you remember the experience clearly?
oh yeah,
Yeah. What was it actually like? I'm asking. I'll tell you why I'm asking. When I was at RAF Tholthorpe, up on a mezzanine floor, which is an artificially created floor up on stilts,
right.
which was about 10 feet up, and it had one single rail at the side, just one wooden rail going across, nothing else to stop you falling off.
Right.
And a spirit passed through me. And when it did, I could not feel the ground. I could not feel my knees, and it felt like exactly the same as if I just jumped into a swimming pool and everything was whooshy around me, no up, no down, and I was teetering towards the edge and I just couldn't stop it. And then all of a sudden, it left me and I could grab on.
Well, that's a pretty good description of what happened to me. With the added part of it is everything swirled as if I guess the best way for me to describe it is if I've been spun around real quick, and I was kind of like that, and then the rest of what you described is pretty accurate. And like I said, my knees buckled and I was going down. Evan caught me, but almost immediately I was fine again.
Would you know what I meant if I said that feeling that you get if you're just about to black out?
Oh, no question. Absolutely,
you know
no
that
question. Yeah.
that sort of otherworldly feeling, and you can't quite control everything, and then you black out usually.
Absolutely,
and it's that sort of feeling. So I'm just really I'm interested if anyone else who's listening has had a similar experience.
Yeah, I'd like to know too. But see, and you know what, Chris? This is when we get talking about my thing on evidence. This is evidence. See, we talk to enough people that have had a similar event, and we catalog this. Now we've got stuff that we can go back and analyze, and we can look at, and we can compare to what happened to other folks. That's the sort of thing we need to do. And just to go off, I know on my tangent I like to, is a database for this type of evidence. Everything from this type of personal experience to paranormal experiences at certain times of the year, certain weather patterns, certain solar patterns, things like that. We've got to collect all of this data, and we've got to share it. We've got to be able to look at it. And that's something
that's all there for you. It's just called the Annals of the Society for Psychical Research. It's all been done.
But I can tell you right now, I can't speak for England, okay, but that's not happening here in the States.
Right.
It's not happening here in the States.
Well, it's not happening now. Full stop. It's all gone to let's have a spooky night out.
Paranormal thrill seekers, as I like to call them, and you and I'll disagree on this. There's a place for that. There really is a place for that.
Yeah, but we're not going to go where that place is.
We're not going to go on that. Yeah. Well, but it breeds folks that want to learn more. It gets their excitement going, and then the ones that really want to learn more, those are the ones that we get on our team. Spanky is a perfect example of that. Here's a guy that wasn't even sure he believed in any of it, saw it, got excited about it. Now the man is a serious student. Dan Clarkson's been doing this for years. And he's a serious student of it. So there is a place for the thrill seeker. And but anyway, that's a story for a different day. So folks, if you're out there listening, would love to hear it if any of you have had an experience where you thought a spirit passed through you, or somehow you felt like you were going to pass out during an investigation, or your physical being changed, not your physical being, but your mental being changed. You felt like you're going to pass out. You got sick. Anything like that. Would love to hear it. And you can tag us right here on the show and comment there. Or if you want to do it this way, you can get a hold of me at ghostguy59@gmail.com and share your experiences. We'd love to hear it. All right.
I'm going to ask something else of you.
Ask me.
Let's take it to the next level up. Oh, we've got plenty of time.
Oh, okay.
The next level up. Have you ever been attacked?
No, I haven't. Now, I did. I've seen people that have been attacked. My nephew got scratched across the wrist during one event. But no, I have personally not been attacked.
Right.
Unless you
No.
want to call what happened in the auditorium that night, but I didn't.
Well, no.
That was more of a.
It's hard to actually you see there isn't enough evidence for me to say what is going on apart from I believe that a spirit entered your space.
Mm-hmm. Which
That's
I
it
would
comes
agree
back
that.
to I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But it does seem to, from what you said with the EVP afterwards or the communication afterwards, it does seem to be malicious intent.
Yep,
So
I would
whether
agree
it's
with that.
designed to make you harm yourself or not, that getting back to fears and darkness and X, Y, and Z, one of my greatest fears on an investigation, which has never happened, is being induced to do something by a spirit, i.e., you're walking along a narrow ledge and they make you fall off.
Wow, and that could be another topic for a whole night, because that is, you want, especially as a cop, you wonder, is that a paranormal event, or is this a psychotic event? Is this an event where
This depends which side of the coin you come down on. I mean, a lot of people will sort of say, "Oh, you've just got yourself so wound up that you have an episode."
exactly, and I hear people talk about, I'm getting goosebumps, or I'm feeling this now, and how often is it just that internal adrenaline starting to flow that's making the body react, and how often is it a paranormal event? See, that's
So,
another
so
experiment,
therefore,
Spanky.
start investigating during the day, which is another reason why I investigate during the day. You don't get
So,
that thrill-seeking, nighttime, enhanced senses experience.
interesting. Now that's a good point. That is a very, very good point. Unfortunately, most of us work during the day, so that
That is, as
makes
I
it so
said,
tough.
it always comes to, well, it comes down to when you can get there, when you're allowed to get there, and
Mm-hmm.
can you afford to get there? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what it always comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
So with me,
But
it comes down to the first two, and I can never afford to do anything. So
yeah. Well, that's really fascinating stuff. What is this physiological reaction we have to things? How often is it the paranormal or the other side, and how often is it our own bodies just getting worked up? And that's not to suggest that there can't be a little bit of combination of both, even.
oh, I've seen both. I've seen big hard men have a total breakdown with it. Not
Mm-hmm.
a permanent breakdown, but on the evening when they're suddenly really out of their depth
Mm-hmm.
because you've got someone who resort to their fists to get themselves out of trouble, and that doesn't
Yeah.
work anymore. So what they suddenly hit this, they can't fight back.
Quick story. We were doing an event, and we had a guest that brought somebody who was in the media. They wanted to go, and they were total skeptics, which is cool. I mean, you got to have skeptics in order to balance things out. So we were doing some work, and Evan was working with this particular group with dowsing rods, and they were pretty active that night. Evan is very talented with dowsing rods. He gave the dowsing rods to this person in the media just to try them out, and danged if they weren't working for him. Now, this particularly unnerved him because he didn't believe any of it, but it was happening. He got so excited, not excited, he got so angry, convinced that Evan had
Yeah,
magnets on him or something like that. And I walked back into the room, and I'm seeing Evan with his hands above his head, with his shirt up, turning around as if he's being arrested, so the guy could see he had no magnets on him. But that was such a virile reaction to the fact that this was happening to him now, and he just couldn't explain it. So instead of being fascinated, he actually got upset and angry. So I guess
So
that's where you're talking.
did he do the typical that I've experienced in the past? Did he suddenly storm off?
No, he didn't, because his wife kept him there.
All right.
But
Because
he,
that's been that's been the reaction that I've had so far from them. That if things start going out of their control and they can't say, "Oh, it's all rubbish, it's this and that," and they start doubting, they storm off, so they don't have to start acknowledging that something's going on.
yeah, and that would, I could see that happening. That didn't happen in this case. He was a really nice guy. Don't misunderstand me. It happened, and I don't think he expected it. And his reaction was not one of fascination, but anger that was based upon not understanding what was happening.
And he can't control it.
And he can't control it. Exactly.
That's a biggie. You can't control it.
So,
now, whereabouts are you going next with your investigations? Where's the next one you're going to?
Well, we've had a couple. The hurricane that came through kind of messed us up a little bit. You ever heard of a treasure hunter? And maybe you haven't heard of him over there, but he's famous here in the States. His name's Mel Fisher.
No.
Mel Fisher was one of the early treasure hunters of the Spanish, what we call the Spanish Plate Fleet. They were a fleet of 12 ships that went down off our coast in 1715. Mel was one of the original folks out there doing the treasure salvaging, but he became famous for finding a ship called the Etosha down in the Florida Keys. Well, because he was in this area, he has this. He's got a museum here in Sebastian, which is right next door to us, and down in Key West. His granddaughter runs the museum here, and we've had some huge success there. And we're wanting to get back in there because, once again, you can't go to a place one time and make a determination.
Absolutely.
You got to go back. So we're going to be going back there for the third time. The hurricane messed that one up. There's another spot that we're going that I really can't name right now, but it was built on the river, what we call the Indian River here in the 1920s, and it was a garage. Truth of the matter was,
it's a speakeasy.
Well, it wasn't a speakeasy, but you're close.
Yeah.
What it was a garage built to accept booze smuggling boats in to unload it, and this whole building's birth, if you will, was nefarious. I mean, it was built to hide smuggled booze. So we're looking forward to hopefully getting back in there because the stories that come out of that place.
Interesting. That could be very interesting.
Like I told you, I'm as sensitive as a rock, right? This is one of two places I've ever walked into. And I walked in there to look at it the first time, and even I knew there was something there. So I'm excited about going into there. So those are coming up. We're going back to the trips and hills.
Before you continue, Dad, we do have a question.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So why are scratches usually 3 marks? And do you believe this is evil or mad spirits?
You know what? This is one of those things, Ryan, or to the person who asked the question, we don't know. Most people look at the 3 scratches as something demonic, almost like the mocking of the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Ghost type of thing. 3 scratches. I don't know that there's ever been, and Chris, correct me if you think I'm wrong. I don't think there's ever been any definitive proof as to why 3 scratches. I think anytime you get scratched like that, it's denoting something that's angry, maybe malevolent. Is it demonic? Could be. Are there demons out there? I personally believe there are. I believe that there are spirits out there that were non-human, were never human. But the scratching, while it does denote something a little angry, I think the jury is still out somewhat on whether or not it's demonic. Chris, have you got a thought on that?
It's just this thing about 3 scratches, because I've seen everything from 1 scratch up to a backfall.
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah.
So people just seem to. I don't know. I blame Hollywood. Just this. Oh, it's got to be 3 scratches, therefore it's demonic. I mean, most of the time I've seen 1 scratch. Literally, most of the time, 1. I've seen a scratch or 2 that have drawn blood.
Yeah.
Not just a scratch. They've been vicious. What are they? I don't know. Is it a spirit cat? I don't know. Something scratching. That's as far as I can tell you. Unless I'm actually there and I can see something, I can't tell you.
See, and that's the kicker about all of this. People like to make very definitive statements, but the truth of the matter is, we still don't know all the answers. We don't, and that's what our quest is to start finding some of these answers and putting some of the pieces of this puzzle together. That's what I did. I'm a detective by trade.
And I've got to also admit, I've been on one investigation where I actually saw a woman scratch herself and then claim she'd been scratched.
No, people wouldn't do that.
No, people would never do that, would they?
Yeah, it happens.
And
yeah, it does happen. And that, once again, though, comes into the need for having very strict guidelines and procedures during an investigation to avoid that type of thing happening. But that's not to say it still can't. So that's well said, Chris. I agree with you. Caller, I hope that answers your question. Or if you have, do you have any thoughts on it yourself? If that person's still on, I'd like to know what you think. So let us know, Ryan. So anyway, what was your next question there, Mr. Hunt?
I've lost my track now. I've been thrown. What I wanted to ask. This has been going on, and I keep forgetting and coming back to it and keep forgetting. And I always remember when we're offline.
Age.
It's age. I know it's age and very small bladders. Trigger objects.
Ah, okay.
Do you use trigger objects?
Yes, we do.
What do you use as trigger objects?
Well, a lot of times, I mean, I've used, for example, in the Mel Fisher Museum, Dan came up with this really brilliant idea of putting a map down of, and I'm thinking exactly how he did it, and he put little ships down, like the ships that were leaving the Caribbean, and to see if anything would cause that to trigger a reaction. At that same investigation, he gave us a bunch of Spanish words to use that might have triggered something. We have a little thing done by our friends at Ghost Stop up in St. Cloud, Florida. It's called Boo Buddy, and it's a little teddy bear, and we use it in the school, and we've had a lot of success with it.
Yep.
And you familiar with it? And
it's more the principle that you're using on that, in that you're using a trigger object which is applicable. To the place.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen far too many who just go along and put a cross down, and they're expecting something to happen.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, a trigger object, in my opinion, is only useful when it is, as you said, applicable to the event. For example, the teddy bear in the school where there's kids. Boom, we've had some really good success with that. I would like to say that Dan's brilliant idea in the Treasure Museum worked, but I don't recall we got anything directly to those trigger objects. But I think they can be helpful.
I mean, with that sort of thing, and you're talking possible sailors and things, I'd put some rum out in a glass.
It may not leave, but okay. It may not leave, but
yeah. But now the other thing which I've always banged on about if you're doing a trigger object, there's two other factors to bring in. Well, three other factors really. Firstly, it needs marking where it is.
Oh yeah. Like putting a ball on the floor and maybe putting powder around it.
That's ball is a no-no.
You don't like that, huh?
Balls can roll on their own. Balls can roll on their own. That's the problem with balls. Okay. So if you put something down, make sure it can't roll. I prefer flat things, so that if it's going to be moved, it has to be moved physically. It can't just shift itself. But it has to be something which has to be moved rather than can move itself. It has to be marked so you can tell whether it's been moved. And it has to be applicable. And what I always do is I put something beside it in writing saying, please move this. Because otherwise, how do they know what you want them to do?
Well, if they're there and you give verbal instructions, not unlike, come over here and touch this antenna, it'll make our lights go on.
If you do that, absolutely. I've always set up my trigger objects in rooms where we're not in.
And put a camera on it?
These were in the days before cameras. Well back. I mean, you're talking 1980s. I mean, I've only owned a camcorder for the last 5 years because that's when I could afford one.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. We used to use like talcum powder a lot to mark things, or we'd put a piece of tape down next to it. Putting down verbally what we'd like to see, and that's interesting. I haven't done that one before, but that'd be interesting.
I'll have to send you the pictures we took at Kilo Lead Mine, where all this was done around mine tallies.
What?
Mine tallies. You had two tallies, one numbers stamped into brass.
Okay.
So when somebody went down the mine, they had one tally.
Okay.
Another one went on the board. When they came back, you collected the tally, so you always knew that everyone was out of the mine.
Got it. Okay.
Yep, that's a mine tally. So we used a mine tally, which is a relevant object drawn around on paper, so you can see whether it's moved. And as it had a little hole cut where it sat on a nail, we drew in the nail circle as well, so you can see if it's just been moved around or it's been moved out. And then underneath it, we had "Please move this," and then we left it alone in the room that nobody was in. And on 2 occasions on that night, we went back, and the tally had been moved up to about 3 inches in one occasion. Now, somebody was saying, "Oh, it was rats. It was this. It was that." I mean, why would rats go near a piece of brass? So
yeah, and here's and I'm talking cop now. Okay, I'm talking evidence in a crime, which isn't applicable, but I still like to keep it applicable. That's where cameras come into play, because you can't. Logic dictates an animal didn't move it, but without something on it to observe it, you can't prove it in a court of law. That's where cameras can be so helpful today. We had a case we actually investigated one of the oldest houses in Vero, a guy named Gifford, one of the original founders in Vero, and we were in his house, and we had a knife move. There was a knife sitting on the table, came back, and it was turned, and nobody had gone back in there at all. So the knife somehow moved. We know what happened, but we can't prove it.
But you can't prove it.
Yeah,
I mean, I had a lovely occasion in a private house, a private manor house, where various things were going on. So we got asked to go and see if we could see if anything going on at the time. Walked straight through the front door, saying, "Oh, this is lovely. This is lovely." And then the door to the living room, which was just off. Well, I say living room, but it's sort of like a dining hall.
Right.
Just opened on its own in front of us, and I mean opened right the way from shut to completely open. Now it's not on camera.
Well, we got on camera. This is a place called Rib City. It's in a little town called Grand Valkyrie, Florida. Little seaside town. And we actually were able to get on camera. And this is one of those rare things. It doesn't happen all the time. People don't, they watch TV and they don't realize that it doesn't happen all the time. But we actually got a chair moving. It was right next to one of our investigators, and they're talking, and you see the chair move out just a little bit, but move out and move back in. And that type of evidence is like holy grail stuff,
It really is. Yeah, it really is. It's the same as my EVPs, where I get a full name, especially one which is checkable.
Yes.
I mean, what I'd really like is to go to somewhere and say RAF Scampton and get Wing Commander Guy Gibson, something like this.
Gibson,
which would be complete. Douglas Bader, someone that you really know. That would be the holy grail.
Yes, absolutely. But that's what we all shoot for, and it's that kind of evidence. As we collect it, we get it, we put it in a place where it's preserved, and we can share it.
Which is why all my stuff goes online. Everything that's why I've got nearly 300 videos online. It's just everything I do is documented.
Yes, yeah. Folks, if you don't document it, it
hasn't happened. Yep.
You got to keep if you're somebody that's not investigating now, or you're new to it, understand that just one simple concept: if you don't document it, it didn't happen. Now, granted, you don't always get it on a recorder or video, but at least write it down.
Write it down, because otherwise it's lost forever.
Yeah, and that's a crying shame.
It really is.
But speaking of, and I didn't tell you I wanted to do this, but as we end our night together, I just want to. An event happened here in the States, up in Connecticut, a few days ago, and I don't know if you heard about it, Chris, but one of the dozen or so flyable intact B-17 bombers.
Yeah, the B-17 went down.
The 909 went down, and I just wanted to, make a comment that being an aviation person and a historian, an aviation historian of sorts, my heart sympathy goes out to the crews of the family and the people that perished on that, and those that did survive. We hope for speedy recovery. But what a tragedy! And it's just a tragedy. So I just wanted to make a comment on that.
Completely, it's terrible.
So, So, Ryan, we got any other comments out there before we call it a night?
Just everyone talking to each other.
Oh,
Oh,
that's something. That's
hey, there
something.
you go. There you
It's
go.
working. We're getting people talking.
We
That's what
have
it's about.
Jeff McCall. Thank you. I am enjoying this. Thanks for being live.
And Jeff, good to talk to you, buddy. I'm always glad to hear from you. He's one of my old time, been with me since the beginning almost. Who else, Ryan?
Has
Ike
Deborah come
joined
on
us.
at all,
Yes,
Brian?
Deborah has come
Ike.
on, and Ike has joined
Ha-
us as well.
Ike.
Hi, Deborah. Now I'm going to tell you once again: no running, no jogging. You behave yourself.
And Ike,
She's,
tell your
she's
sister I
had an
wish
eye
her happy birthday.
operation. I'll send Larry down and he'll smack your bum if you start jogging.
Oh yeah. So Deborah, take care of yourself. And Ike, let your sister know I wished her a happy birthday. Um, anyway, well, good. I'm glad folks are so they're talking amongst themselves, kind of sharing some stories, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. That's what we need to communication, folks. That's what this is all about. So we really appreciate all of you joining us tonight. Next week, because I have to go to Evan's play, my son's play, we're going to be doing a taped show, so it won't be live, but we will be back on at 7. We're going to tape it a little earlier, but 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be back on live. So join us. But like I said, we'll be back on with a tape show next Thursday. So. Anything you'd like to add, Chris? Great conversation. I enjoyed it.
I've sort of
You're
got to,
getting
it's got
tired.
to 1 o'clock in the morning, and the old brain has gone to porridge. Really.
Well, you know what? I can't tell how much I appreciate you staying up just so that we can do this show live like this. So, Ryan, any comments from you, my young son? Not so
Nope,
young
but we
son.
have Heather Lee Landon. First time listening. Thank you for being live. I very much enjoyed it.
Hey, do come back next
Excellent.
time.
Yeah,
Try and ask us
please.
some questions, please, and tell us any experiences you've had.
Yeah, and if you're just watching us for the first time, one of the things that we do, we talk. We're just having a conversation. We try to come up with a theme, but we always end up going on a tangent.
It
But
goes
we think
everywhere.
but that allows us to just talk about stuff, talk about our experiences, talk about our thoughts, and that's what we really want to hear from you folks. Your thoughts, your experiences. Nobody's wrong, okay? And we don't want you to be nasty, but you can certainly have different thoughts than us, and that's what it's all about. So we appreciate everybody listening, and we'll look forward to seeing you.
I like hearing other people because it makes me think.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden somebody will say something, and I'll think, "Damn, why haven't I thought of that in the
Yeah,
past?"
exactly.
And it
So
might be so simple, and you just overthink things, and somebody comes along looking outside, looking in, and they see something you don't.
yeah,
So every point of view is valid.
that's what it's all about. Sharing, learning. That's what
We're
it's
all
all about.
learning. Anybody who says they're an
Yep.
expert is a liar.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, my old friend. Well, we're going to call it a night. We're going to let you go to bed. Folks, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to look forward to seeing you again live 2 weeks from tonight, but there will be a tape show on in place next Thursday. So watch that if you can. Like and subscribe, please, and share. Let the world know we're out here to talk paranormal with you. So until we see you again, have a great night. Thanks for watching, and we'll see all of you on the other side. Have a good night.